Hi, I'm Pete from Jamie's food team. I'm going to show you how to pick a crab. Now when I say pick a crab, I mean break it into pieces and extract all the delicious meat from every corner of this complicated little creature. This is how it looks when you turn it upside down. 4 legs on each side, 2 claws, and it's got this head here. It does contain a lot of meat. Now I've got myself set up with a board on a tray, and the reason for this is that there's often quite a lot of water inside a crab, or juices, and you don't want to lose them. They're really delicious and all tasty and flavourful, so that's why I've got the tray here so I can collect it all. If I just had my board on the table, they'd run all over the place and I'd lose them. So I've got my board, my tray, I've got a plate and a tray nearby that I can place my picked meat and my shells and things like that on, so that I'm not creating a mess all over my table. And you'll be very glad you did this when it's time to clean up. You won't have crab juice all over the place. So in terms of equipment, I've got a little crab pick here. This is what it looks like. It's got a forked end on one end, and it's got a sort of a flat picker on the other end. And this is what you need to get into all of those little bits and pieces in the crab and pull out all the white meat. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can use the end of a teaspoon. That's quite a good alternative for levering meat out. The other thing I'm going to use is a pestle from Mortar and Pestle. And that is really just something heavy to crack the shell with. So if you don't have a pestle from Pestle and Mortar, the end of a rolling pin will do, or maybe even a hammer from your toolkit. First thing to do, turn the crab upside down. And this flap here, just pull that off. That'll go straight in the bin. Next thing to do is pull our legs off, and it's really quite easy to do. You just snap them off like that. Now, I'm not going to pick these right at the minute, so I'm going to take them and put them on another plate and keep them out of the way while I deal with the rest of the crab. So legs from the other side. And then the claws. Claws are just a little bit bigger than the legs, but you break them off in exactly the same way. So this is the head of the crab. Inside this head, there's some delicious brown meat, and to get to it, we need to take the main body of the crab away. So to do this, put the head upside down, flat on the board, your fingers here, and your 2 thumbs, and you just push up like that. Takes a little bit of pressure. And what you get is the body coming right away from the head. Now these things here, these grey things, look a bit like sponges. They're called dead man's fingers, and they're not good to eat. Pick them off. So that's the main body of the crab. I'm going to pop this on my plate with the rest of the legs, just for the moment. And I'm going to get myself a plate, get myself a spoon, and just scoop this out. Onto my plate. Make sure you get right into the corners underneath the shell. Now this orange stuff here is roe, so it was a female crab, as these are eggs. But that's all perfectly good to eat, really delicious. And this brown meat, although you know it may not look the most appetizing meat in the world, is really, really super delicious. So don't waste it. If you've never tried it before, at least try it. It's really tasty. It's where all the flavour is in a crab. So now I've picked all the brown meat, I'm going to get rid of the shell. Now for the claws, I'm going to get myself another bowl for the white meat and keep the white meat separate from the brown meat. And this claw, I'm basically just going to break open and pick out all the lovely delicious chunks of white meat. There's 2 chunks right on the end here. I'm just going to pull them off. And then I'm going to crack the crab claw open. A crab this size is really quite easy to break it open with your hands. You don't need to be over dramatic with it. Same thing on this bit. Pull the white meat off. And in here, I'm going to get my little crab pick out. If there's any loose bits of meat in there, I'm going to get them out. I'm happy that's pretty much picked and there's nothing left inside it. So that goes in the bin. And now it's time to pick the claw itself. I'm going to crack this claw, lay it flat on the board, and just give it a good whack. You're not looking to pulverize it, just to break the shell. Now once it's broken, carefully pick the bits off and make sure you get all the little bits. And you really just pick your way through it. In the middle of the claw there's this flat piece of this sort of bony cartilage really you don't want to eat. Pick around that, put it in the bin. This little joint here, just pull the meat out. Once you start doing this, you begin to see quite quickly how to do it, and it's not really that hard. Time for the next claw. Scoop out whatever's in here. Time for a bash. Now some people's hands react when they touch crab. So if your hands start itching at any point, then you're probably one of them. But don't panic, it's not going to turn into anything terrible. At worst, it'll just itch. What I tend to do is just have a bowl of water or a sink of water nearby, so that if I start to get itchy or my hands feel a bit funny, I just give them a rinse and it feels better quickly. Now obviously it takes quite a while to do this, so if you're having people around for dinner, you really are best to do this ahead of time. There's nothing wrong with doing this in the morning or the afternoon and putting the crab in the fridge whilst you get on with the rest of the things you need to do with the rest of your meal. Right, this is one of the legs, and you basically do the same thing as you do with a claw. Break it into bits, pull the meat off. If you think there's any meat inside the shell, pull it out. Now that's all the leg meat picked. Now for the body. It looks very bony and not very nice, but there's actually a lot of really nice meat in here. And it's perhaps the most delicate part, so you've got to pick it quite carefully. First of all, what I do is go into the leg joints. There's 4 there, and then the claw joint here. And I take the end of my picker and just pull the joints off. Pull the sockets off, like that. And I pick all the meat off these. Now I'm being quite thorough with these. Obviously you don't need to be. You don't have to pick every single little last bit of crab. I might as well show you how to do the whole job properly. And you can decide which bits you do or don't want to do. That's all the sockets done. Now the body is the last bit. I'm going to hold in the palm of my hand, and just any bits of white flaky meat you see in here, just pick out. Now you have to be quite careful with this because there's a lot of delicate little bits of crab bone in here. And if you're too rough with it, they'll snap, and then you'll get a bit of bone in your crab when you're eating it, and that's not ideal. What you have to keep telling yourself about this meat in here is it's the sweetest and most delicious bit of the whole animal. And that makes you feel better about spending time on it. Okay. Now if you look at that, you can see not much left inside there at all. So now I've got my white meat, my brown meat. I've got my board here with all this lovely juice on that I've managed to save. I can pour back in to the meat. Then the next thing to do is to check the meat for any splinters of bone or shell that you might have in there. So you take a clean tray and just put all your picked white meat in. Then pick the way through it. See if you can see any pieces of bone. There's a little bit there. Any bits of shell. That's that. And now for the brown meat. Just your fingertips is enough to check through it and make sure there's nothing there. Yep, that's okay. Right, now my crab's cracked and picked. I'll get rid of all this stuff and put all my white meat into one plate. And on my brown meat. Onto another. So here's your picked white meat, you picked brown meat. Delicious, juicy, flavorful white meat and fantastic, creamy, rich brown meat, ready to go into whatever dish you're going to put them in, whether it's a salad, whether it's on toast, whether it's pasta dish, whether it's risotto or a fish soup. It may not look like a lot of meat for all the effort you put into it, but remember that crab is really rich and decadent and delicious, and little goes a long way. So that's how to pick a crab.